We have enough folks now that we are a quorum, and hopefully maybe before the end of our session today, we'll have full representation. But I'm really happy to see all of you here today. Welcome to your August 2022 Talking Circle for the State Tribal Education Partnership Program, or STEP program. Our first Talking Circle since the project director's meeting, so it has been a minute. We'll start, as we always do, with our standard disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Very good. Okay, well, today's session, here is our agenda. We're going to cover a few items and lift some things up to put them on your radar. We're going to offer some feedback on those annual performance reports that were submitted in the spring. I know back in August somewhere when we were first sending out the invitations that you might have been invited also to bring a copy of your APR to today's Talking Circle. If it was many weeks ago, in all fairness, so if you forgot about it or you missed that memo, we have a few minutes here at the beginning if you want to pull that up and have it handy, whether you have it in a hard copy or whether you have it up on the screen next to you as we go through some of that feedback. We'll provide a little bit of time for reflection on what we're sharing and compare that with what you submitted to hopefully generate a little bit of reflection and some to-dos to be thinking about in your future annual performance reporting. So we have a few also, in addition to the reporting tips, we have a few budget items that we want to make sure are on your radar. And as always, we want to devote a good portion of our time to some grantee program sharing, so we'll do that as well. And then we do have some upcoming events and activities that we'll lift up. And of course, as always, ask for your feedback on today's session. I hope that sounds all right. So for those who may not have heard the news already, our program officer, Shala Ortega, has retired, and we wish her well in this new chapter of life. And we want to make sure that you are updating your contact information for your program officers and make note of who you're going to reach out to going forward regarding any questions around your STEP grant. So I'm pleased to welcome today Ms. Donna Sadis-Burns, who you probably know, and welcome her. She is going to serve as an interim project director.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I appreciate everybody's patience as we transition. We are also in the process of interviewing to backfill some of these positions. It's going okay, taking longer than we ever anticipated. So in the interim, Angela and I are kind of splitting duties. So you may see her, you may see me. I think we made her the official POC on your GAN. But I will be in to step in and assist as needed. She is helping me with the Native American language program as well. So she's taking care of that at the moment. But I'm really happy to be here. I know Shala has often bragged about this group, and the conversations that you've had have been fruitful and helpful. And I hope that trend continues. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Happy to have you here today. And I see if you're looking at the chat box, Sarah has put some specific contact information in there for you, as well as dates for when Donna will be looking after the STEP grantees, and when Angela will step in and serve as your official program officer going forward. So go ahead and grab those emails going forward, and you can use that. We'll go ahead and move into our feedback now regarding your annual performance reports that you submitted this past spring. Kicking off with some congrats. You can give all yourselves a little pat on the back for these things that we're going to share. First of all, a well-deserved cheers to all of you for completing your APRs on time. perhaps that's just one reason why Shala would be bragging about this group. Not only on time, but also submitted successfully through G5, which we know can be a little quirky at times. So you're getting a gold star for navigating that. And in reading your executive summaries was really a highlight. They were really complete. They provided great information, stuck within the page limit. So be proud of yourselves and all the work that you invested into that, and a heartfelt thank you as well from your team. We do have a few areas for reflection and growth, just a few things to be keeping in mind going forward. So I'll go through all of those now, and if you were able to pull up a copy of the APR that you submitted, now is when you can kind of hear what we're going to share and kind of look back at what was submitted. We're also, if you have any questions along the way, please lift those up. We're happy to try to answer those and provide some clarification now. So one area that we want to spend a little bit of time talking about is with Section A, and particularly around the measures. So we found that in the STEP APRs in this past round, most of our reports did not use the exact wording of the GEPRA measures. And I'm going to go ahead and put those up on the screen shortly, but this is a really easy fix to be sure that you're using the wording that was provided by OIE for all of those government defined, those GEPRA measures on which you report. And I'll go ahead and put those up on the screen in a minute here, but you want to make sure that those are correctly labeled as GEPRA, GPRA. And here I'll go ahead and put that wording up here on the slide. So I know, 2 years into this 3-year grant now, we know that everybody has to report on GEPRA measures A, B, C. Everybody in their proposals proposed to also report on measures D and E. And of course, our friends in the Kanik tribe are the only ones who are reporting on measure F there. So there on the screen, you see the wording. Just go, you can even just copy and paste that and put that right into your report. And that way, you're using the right wording. Another easy fix, sometimes we see tripping people up, is making sure you report on all those unique project measures, those ones that are labeled PROJ that are specific to your program. Making sure that you're including all of those unique project measures that you defined in your very first STEP annual performance report. So we saw a few instances of project measures where those project measures were missing. They didn't keep following you into this past APR. Even if it's worded specifically to a project year, you want to be sure to include it in each of your annual performance reports. Remember, we like to say that those project measures, they kind of get carved into stone in that very first APR that you submit. And so now you're obligated to report on them annually and include those in your submissions. Yes, and I see Sarah's got a note there in the chat box as well. I know that our leadership has been pretty consistent with our project directors in this group, so hopefully you all do have access to G5 or maybe somewhere in your own files with those APRs that are submitted. But always, if you have questions or G5 is giving you troubles, your team is here to help you out. And that G5 help desk can be helpful too if you run into problems there. So the other piece of the Section A and those explanations of progress is what we want to lift up. Those explanations of progress is where we'd like to read about specific details that are specific to those project measures that are included in the table. So this is really where you're going to write about the steps that your grant project has taken to make substantial progress towards those goals and measures described, and describe those data collection activities and tools that you're using. So this one might be a good one to, like, if you have that in front of you now, to kind of look back and see in your explanation of progress. We have on the screen, we have a sort of a checklist of things that we want to read about in those sections. So I'll read through those now, and you can reflect on if you have any questions about it, or if you included it, or what changes you might want to make in the next upcoming round of reporting. First, we want to know, what data is collected and why. Tell us why and how the collected data really inform that specific measure. Give us the start and end dates of the data collection period. Sometimes that can help clarify some of the information that's provided in the narrative pieces. Data collection procedures. We'd like for you to explain the process or methods used to gather that data. Be sure to explain the way you analyzed or evaluated the data for reporting. That's always really helpful in case it helps to clarify sometimes how you got to the numbers or the ratios that you did for your report. And then in that narrative piece, and the explanations of progress, you should be describing how you've met or made progress towards the measure. We've all been through a lot and overcome a lot in the last couple of years. And so sometimes we don't always meet the goal, but you've probably made some key steps in making progress towards those measures. So provide in that space an explanation of maybe why the goal wasn't met, if it wasn't met, and the steps that the program is taking to make substantial progress towards those goals. I'm going to pause and see if I have any questions here. Yes, Sarah chimed into the chat with a good reminder too. So I know the space that you get in that explanation of progress area tends to be kind of small. So one strategy is to not list all of your project measures or all of your GEPRA measures in one table, and maybe kind of break that out into separate tables, so that you have adequate space to really provide all of this information about the measures in that table. Yes, and section C is always a backup. If you need more information, you can always tell us, read more about this in section C as well. Okay, so we looked at the wording there. Here's just a chance to reflect now. This is the checklist or the information for those explanations of progress that I just listed off. Maybe take a minute or two. If you have that APR document that was submitted in front of you, you can kind of look and see, did I include this? How would I address it? Do I have any questions about what's being asked? And if you have any of those comments or reflections, feel free to come off mute and share with the group here. Or maybe
this is Allison, and I think I ask this every year because I try and count these, and sometimes I don't count them appropriately, but it's GEPRA measure number 3, the number of education programs grantees directly administer. And I think that what you guys told me last year is, what do you consider a program, and how do you define it? And I'm like, well, but this is a program, and this is a program, and this is I had so many programs, and I was like, I don't think I'm counting them right. So I think after meeting in an office hour, time with you guys, one of your open office hours, we whittled it down, and I think we have basically whittled it down to 2 main programs under this specific grant, because everything bleeds into other stuff. And so we were like, how do we narrow it down? So I think that's one of the most difficult things with some of the wording of these measures, is they're so broad that when you try to think exactly, how do I narrow this down? So number 3, GEPRA project number 3, the number of educational programs. So I think if I had any suggestions for going forward in the future for other grantees, it would be very clearly defined what you mean by education program, so that when you go to write your report, you aren't pulling information from other stuff that really isn't a part of what you define as a program. At least that's the biggest struggle I had with GEPR measure number 3, was trying to, and I really only came to terms with it after I had that meeting with you, when we went through like 19 different art programs. You're like, okay, now, but that goes under this one, and that goes under that one, and da 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 da. And I finally understood it. But that was my big takeaway from previous meetings, and my biggest struggle was the broadly defined stuff, not knowing how to narrow it down.
Yeah, and I'll just hop in because, yeah, I remember going through all that, but I think that is such good feedback, and it really applies cross program, that, yeah, sometimes these measures are very ambiguous as far as exactly what they're asking for. And so we really have tried over the last year, and will continue to do so, to give a little bit more specific direction about what OIE is really hoping to measure with each one. And I think one of the best things that grantees can do with that is really make some good notes on your end about what you ended up deciding to use as measurement. So like if you decided, okay, these are our key programs that we're going to measure on, to make sure and leave good notes for yourself. Or, sometimes our programs have turnover. And while, like Tracy mentioned at the top of the hour, y'all have been super lucky that most of your programs have had such steady leadership over the grant course, which is wonderful. That if there were turnover, that the next person would understand, oh, this is how Allison was counting that and what she had figured out, so that each year you're continuing to measure the same thing. Because it also typically will then paint the best picture of your program. Because if in year 1 you were measuring it this way and you said, oh, we had 9 programs, and then in year 2 you decide, oh, I'm going to measure it a different way, and all of a sudden you have 2 programs, it may look like all of a sudden you're doing less, when really you're still doing as much, if not more, but maybe you're just counting it a little differently. So yeah, I think just making those notes on y'all's end as well, so you remember how you're doing it year to year, because it can be a while in between those reporting seasons, and sometimes that gets a little cloudy.
Well, to build on what you were saying, exactly. Yes, that's so true when it comes to what we are doing with the programs that we directly administrate, which is GEPR 3, but also when we're doing those either capacity building things for the LEA, and then the LEA is also tracking data for us on the number of students impacted, and then they're following through the various grade, the cohorts, the completers of all the various things that we're doing. We've had turnover at the schools. So many people have retired and quit in the last 2 years. And we're like, oh, we used to go to this counselor to get these things for this. And they're like, well, what report did they pull? How did they do it? And I'm like, well, I'm not in their office, or have access to your thing. I mean, yes, we have a data sharing agreement, but you've never let me log into your computers before. So I don't exactly know the name of whatever it is. So what I've done, as we had a person retire in the middle of last year, before the APR was due, I put her on contract, the retiree, and then I had her write out everything she did in a step-by-step for the person that comes after her, because she was like, okay, I'm retired, bye. And then I said, wait. And we put her on an independent contractor agreement and said, help us work with the LEA that you worked with, for them to, understand what you did. Because she said, well, I left everything for them. I said, yeah, but that's not the same thing as you being there and teaching the person that comes, because it was a good 3 months that it took them to hire her replacement.
Yeah.
And so we had 3 months of no data collection happening and nothing happening in that area. And I'm like, I need this information. So if I could make any suggestion to people that have data sharing agreements with your LEAs, that you make sure that they have an actual document that you have gone over, and that the data that they are collecting is consistently collected in the same methodology. Otherwise, your numbers are going to be wacky from year to year, because we had one number, it was like, 168 kids. And I went, how can I have 168 kids when I only show 120 enrolled? You must be double counting, and we need to only single count. And they went, oh yeah, I didn't account for this. And I was like, okay. So If I make any recommendation to people that have a data sharing agreement with the LEAs, definitely make sure that you double check their data methodology from year to year, especially if you have the turnover like we've had. Oh my goodness. Otherwise, your data is going to be way wacky.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip.
Those are all great tips. I appreciate you sharing that. You know, I have sometimes seen where a specific report can sometimes be created. If it doesn't exist already, you can kind of set up an ad hoc report depending on what kind of, you know, student information systems. But everything you're talking about, Allison, is documenting those business rules around generating those reports is absolutely key to being consistent across year to year.
Well, and the lady that retired had literally been in her job 30 years. So she knew how to do it. She'd been doing it forever. And when you rely on someone who has that kind of institutional knowledge, they're just like, oh, Karen can do the report and Karen knows how to do that. And because Karen has those things saved under Karen's name, you know, so she goes into the computer system, into the electronic student data recording system, and she looks up reports that she created for herself, you know, umpteen years ago. Well, new people that log in don't have access to those reports that she created under her user ID and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about with IT and things. So it's having her go in as a contractor, sitting down with the person who replaced her, and then set up the exact same reports under that person's ID, and then write down how those reports were set up so that if that person were to be abducted by aliens or retire or hit by a bus, whatever you want to say, they leave, that the same reports can be generated again without either Karen or that person who replaced her coming in to do it again. So it's just trying to get consistency. That's really been hard the last 2 years with the turnover. And I wanted to bring that up. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. How about anybody else as you're looking at that list there around explanations of progress, the little checklist that we have up on the screen? Any questions that come up for you, or maybe any reflections about something that has worked for particularly well, as Allison shared in developing those explanations of progress, reporting on the data? Okay, well, please feel free to continue to chime in and share as we move along here. I'm going to take us on to the next section, and as I do, I'm going to share in the chat box a document. So the next piece of feedback that we want to share with you all is regarding section C, and the document that I've put into the chat box for you. If you don't already have it, you can download it right now and save it in a safe place. Is the STEP optional section C reporting tool. So we actually only had one grantee out of our cohort who used this optional section C reporting tool, and the other APRs didn't include quite all the information that we were asking for in this section and that we listed in this tool. So to be fair, this was a newly introduced tool at our APR reporting webinar, and we developed the Section C tool in collaboration with the program officers at OIE to help put some structure around this section and really ensure that all of your reports are including details that are necessary for your program officers to determine whether substantial progress is being made. So if you didn't complete the Section C tool, we strongly urge you to do it soon and submit it with your annual performance reporting updates. I'm going to share a due date shortly around that. If you choose not to use the tool, you can provide that information in another format. But let's take a couple of minutes now. And again, if you have your performance report that was submitted earlier this spring, take a look at Section C, maybe compare it with that information that's listed in that reporting tool. If you did not use the reporting tool for Section C, maybe you have some thoughts about why not, or what may have been confusing about the tool. I want to make some space for you to share and lift up any questions or clarifications maybe that you have about this particular document.
Well, I'm going to chime in. I loved that reporting tool. It made it so much easier for me to like put my thoughts together. In the past, section C was just this giant blank paper. And I'm like, well, what do they want to see in section C? What do they, I mean, I want to tell you this, but how should I organize it? And it was so helpful for me to be able to have a place to put everything and for me to organize my thoughts. And I really appreciate the work that you've done to make the reporting so much clearer, because that has always been the hardest thing, is writing the narrative behind the numbers and trying to explain everything. And you gave me a very clear outline of what I should do. And it just set me free. I could just write and just put so much in there because you gave me questions and prompts as to what you wanted to see. And it really helped. So I appreciate the work that you did. And yeah, I'm the person that did. I used it, 26 pages worth of it.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. That is the goal, is hopefully to make things a little bit easier for you and support you in all of your work and reporting here. Any thoughts from others on the call here today? Feel free to come off mute, share your thoughts.
I'm sorry, Tracy, did you just say there was just the one that used the tool?
Of 4. Mm-hmm.
Of the 4. So if anyone else from the other if you can let us know, maybe were you not aware of it? Is it not fit for what you need? Or give us some feedback if it doesn't do a whole lot for you. Just curious, because we want to make sure that you have everything that you need. And if it doesn't fit, then let us know.
If anyone is talking and they're still on mute.
You're also welcome to pop it in the chat. And I know a couple of you who are on may not be the one who's ultimately responsible for the reporting. And so you may be thinking, I'm not sure why they didn't turn it in. And that's okay too. Don't feel put on the spot with that one.
Yeah, and you can always reach out at a later time to your team or your program officer if you do have any thoughts or feedback on that as well. So you do have an opportunity coming up to interact with this tool again. As I said, we encourage you to include this in your APR updates. You can use the form, or you can use the form to record that information in another format. Okay, so I mentioned APR updates. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So everybody does submit an annual performance reporting update for the new project year. So if you some of you, as you recall in your annual performance reports, you may have reported 999. 999 is that code that tells G5 that you do not have the data now currently in your hand when you submit the APR, but you will have it before the end of the project year. And we are nearing the end of the project year. So if you reported 999 for some or all of your project measures in section A, then you definitely need to submit an APR update. Okay, if you submitted accidentally, perhaps maybe an incorrect number, or a number that maybe needs to be changed in section A, as you have taken a chance to look back at that and review it, then yes, you need to submit an APR update. If you submitted all correct and complete data in section A of your annual performance report this past spring, and you did not report any 999s for any of the measures, then no, you do not need to submit an annual performance reporting update. So that clarifies my earlier comment. If you reported 999 for any of those measures, or if you need to correct any information, you do need to submit an APR update. If all information is correct and complete, no 99s are reported, then you do not need to submit an APR update. Let's follow that. Oh, Allison has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Real quick question. When we submit the APR, you're only going to want the specific Section A charts for the ones with the 999s on them and not the other ones, just the 999 charts. Yeah.
That is a great question and a perfect segue to the next slide here. So we want APR updates must include all measures that you reported 999 for this past spring APR. And I see that Sarah has posted in the chat box as well an update form for Section A that you can use to provide that information. Did I get that right, Sarah? Did you or anyone have something to add there?
Yeah, I popped the form over in the chat. So yeah, we'll be looking for all of those via email. If you have any questions about, I'm not, even with this kind of thought process that we've shared, if you're not sure if you should be doing one, feel free to reach out. We'd much rather you check so that we make sure and get them all in versus it hitting the 27th and you didn't realize you had one due and then you having to scramble. So please reach out and, like we shared here, if you did not turn in the Section C tool previously, we would love if you took a few moments to complete that, just because it does provide some information that OIE uses as they look at your data each year. So it's super helpful if you have a few moments to go ahead and knock that out.
Thank you. Yes, so if you happen to be able to look back at that now, if you see any 999s, know that you're going to use that form and you'll submit that via email to the email that you see on the screen and is posted in the chat box now, oie@seiservices.com. You'll want to copy your program officer, who by the due date will be Angela Hernandez. Mark October 27th on your calendar. So that's when they're going to be expecting to see those updates. Of course, you can always turn it in early too, but know that that is the deadline. Okay, so this next screen I wanted to share and put up here just as a friendly little reminder of how Section A looks. We talked about using the exact wording of the GEPRA measures. Same holds true for those project measures that were initially submitted in your very first APR. You want to use the same wording so that there's consistency across the years. Make sure that they're labeled correctly with their little acronyms there, GPRA or PROJ, depending on the type. Now, the little X's there that you see in the boxes there are simply to indicate that you need not enter data or numbers into those boxes. Remember, you're reporting on the actual performance ratios only for the GEPRA measures. And for the project measures, you're reporting on both the target ratio and the actual ratios. And then, of course, those explanations of progress and the space down below, you see, we went through some of those tips and the types of information we're looking for there. Okay. All right, well, that is all of our feedback and all of our tips that we wanted to share around annual performance reporting and the updates that are coming up due on the 27th of next month. We're going to move now into talking a little bit about changes or adjustments or new additions or ideas that you're maybe bringing into your programs in this final year of the project. Another area that we get a lot of questions on the TA team is about student eligibility services, changes that maybe may need to be made in budgets. which sometimes boil down to what are local requirements versus grant requirements, and what changes require office approval from the Office of Indian Ed. By local requirements, I really mean those policies, those practices, procedures that stem from your organization, whether that's an LEA requirement or some requirements and policies from your tribal education agency or department, or maybe even practices that have been codified specific to your program. Those are the things that are defined maybe in your scope of work or administrative practices, versus, on the other hand, grant requirements, which stem from the original notice inviting applicants for the STEP grant, and of course your approved proposal, which essentially functions as your contract with OIE, specifying the ways that you're going to use your awarded funds. So that approved proposal is what your organization has agreed to do. And a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is that anything that really goes beyond the scope of that original proposal generally will require OIE approval. So I have a couple of scenarios just to hopefully maybe stimulate some discussion or bring up any questions that you might have about this. I'm going to put a few scenarios up on the screen, and your job is to tell me if this is a local decision or a grant requirement. And then, of course, if you have any questions or nuances that you want to throw into the mix for us, please feel free. Okay, so this first scenario is that if this was a STEP grantee, is saying that we have been approached by a potential partner organization to provide job skills training to student interns. Given this scenario, the information that you have, would you say this is a change that requires OIE approval, or is this a local decision? Allison chimes in, says local. Anybody else? Thank you, Esther, agrees. Okay. Yes. So as long as the focus of the partnership is within the focus of your approved proposal, it is a local decision about whether to enter into that new partnership. You will be required to report on the new partnership in your STEP grant. That's one of the items that was listed in the Section C reporting tool, but that doesn't require pre-approval by OIE. Okay, new scenario. A new partner district wants to engage in our professional development activities. Is this a local decision, or does this require OIE approval? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to chime in verbally this time because I have a question how it's worded. When you say a new partner district, is that partner district in your service area that was defined in your grant? Because if it was in your service area, I would say that's a local decision. But if it's outside of your service area that you had said that you were going to serve, then I think that would require an approval from OIE because you're going outside what you said you originally would do. But because that's exactly where I'm at right now is whether we defined our service area and whether I can go outside of our service area, which I was going to talk to Donna about. So that's where I'm going, is it depends if it's defined in your service area or not.
That's the exact nuance that we wanted to highlight here, Allison, and I think you are spot on with your thinking and approach to this, that anytime you want to make changes that are different than what you originally proposed, then you need to submit a request to OIE. Yeah, and I see you've got Esther thinking there too.
Yes, so we're coming up with this on our recruitment of teachers. We have been trying to recruit solely in our service area that was defined under this grant as Humboldt County, and we're constantly getting people from outside of the county wanting to take part and we're like, but that's not what we defined. So I've been wrestling with it, and I really, to feel like we're going to have any kind of success, we need to open up our service area. However, is that really going to truly get me the teachers here in Humboldt County that I'm looking for if I'm opening it up to our neighboring counties, which we're rural, so they would be very far away, you know, and so like in my heart, I'm like, yes, I want to serve and create more Native American teachers and recruit them into teaching. But if they're 110 miles away from me, how is that benefiting the schools that I'm trying to benefit in our county? So that's the problem we're having right now, is everybody we're trying to recruit. So I'm exactly following you on this and wondering, what do I do?
Yeah, thank you, Allison. And I think that's something that once you kind of get a decision of, if that's a great question to be considering, you know, because they're rural, because there would be a lot of traveling, are they going to be for sure doing it? It's just a matter of, I would probably have to run it past the attorneys just to make sure, you know, you're expanding the area of service, but you're doing that. And so you're not changing the scope of the grant. You're just trying to expand to make sure you meet those GEPRA and project goals and objectives. So
yes, exactly. Because I mean, we actually have one person that was super interested, and they submitted all the paperwork, and we were like, yay, are you planning on being in Humboldt County anytime soon? And she was like, well, I think I'm going to move there. And I'm like, oh, well, when you move here, we'd love to have you.
right.
So
Right.
it's just been a hard time.
I know that the way the application was approved, it had this particular, but I'm of the mind that if you're expanding and not changing, you know, it does, I don't know about sharing agreements and all that stuff, you know, the details, but let me know when you're ready to make that decision, and let me know and we can chat.
Thank you, Donna. I will probably put that on our APR update, because that was one of the areas
Absolutely.
that we 999.
Yep.
And we've been trying to do that plan, do, check, act on how we recruit teachers, and we've tried various things. And so we've been documenting it and the responses we've been getting off of various recruiting, and we are still pulling people from outside the area. So yeah, I think we're going to have to think about that, or we're going to have to redefine something.
And I think by that time too, we'll pull in Angela, because since she's the program officer for the professional development program for teacher recruitment and so forth, she may have some other ideas that I wouldn't think of. So I think we can pick her brain as well.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Super. Thank you. I'm so glad you lifted that up. In our example, we did say we made some, perhaps maybe made some unstated assumptions in our example, that this would be a new partner, would be an expansion, and that we would want to have that conversation and approval from OIE. So I'm glad that you were able to make that connection today. All right, one last final little example. In this example, the grantee wants to move budgeted funds from the personnel category to the contractual category in order to expand professional development to include more districts. Local decision or change that requires OIE approval. Allison chimes in with OIE approval. Esther agrees. And yes, that is our response as well. This is the change that requires OIE approval. Anytime you want to move funds from one category to another, you have to seek that OIE approval, as that is regarded as a significant budget implication. Also, because in this example, more districts are proposed to be added, this may be an example of an expanded scope, which might be another issue that requires OIE approval. A couple of quick rules of thumb to keep in mind. You do have the ability to reallocate up to 10% of your budget, of your approved budget, without that OIE approval. But when you move money into a different category that was originally 0, that's definitely going to require OIE approval. Does this bring up any questions or nuances that anybody wants to share?
In your specific example, I have been through this with it being in the personnel category and going to professional development under contractual. And it does impact your indirect versus direct program charges, as salary and fringe are definitely direct, but there's a certain threshold on a contract where you're not going to apply indirect to it because it's basically a pass through. And the first $25,000, I mean, there's a lot of various rules you want to think about when you're thinking 2 CFR Part 200 and what's allowable and whatnot. But usually I address this when we do the carryover and revision, and I submit that we're going to be revising the budget if that has come up during the year. But that is one thing to think about, is it impacts your indirect. So if you move something from personnel to contractual, you also need to look at the impacts that has on your indirect.
Really good insight. Thank you. All right, so just to summarize and quickly recap, when you're considering changes to activities or services, here are some questions you can ask yourself in order to determine whether you're going to need OIE approval. You can ask yourself, is this outside or beyond what was written in the original approved proposal? Does the change have significant budget implications, keeping in mind some of those details that Allison just shared as well? Does the change entail a change in key personnel? If the answers to these questions are no, it's likely a local decision. If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you will definitely need OIE approval before implementing the change. I want to emphasize that because you really cannot implement changes that impact the scope of your work without that OIE approval first. So when you are submitting a request for these kinds of changes, you want to provide as many details as possible about the requested change, and you may need to submit a budget revision depending on what type of change is being requested. If you have questions about this, of course, your TA team, your program officers are always on hand to help you sort some of this out. Okay, any questions about that? Do have a few more reminders about budgets. Okay, so in year 3 grant award notifications should be in G5 for each of your programs currently. You want to get in there and read that GAN, that grant award notification, carefully to verify that all the information is correct and up to date. Specifically, you want to make sure the project director is listed correctly, the level of effort or FTEs that you have reported in there is accurate, and to make any updates if there's any changes to contact information, making sure that's accurate as well. Your GAN will have your award and amount for year 3, so you want to pay attention to the award amount, noting any potential cuts. And then also be sure to review your GAN for any restrictions. You want to take particular note of that. Each grantee, this is what each grantee is required of around budgets. Year 3 budget revision. Every grantee is required to submit a year 3 budget revision. Okay, everyone will complete their budget for the new fiscal year. This will be due November 17th of this year, so you'll want to make note of that on your calendar as well. We'll get into some of the budget details of your revisions in more detail at the next talking circle, and I'll share those dates with you before we say goodbye today. Yep. We'll share those, we'll go over that, and we'll share that information. Following the release of your GANs, every grantee does complete a budget revision with the actual awarded amounts plus any carryover from the previous years, okay? When that time comes, everyone will complete the STEP optional budget revision tool, which is in the chat box right now, which you can download. Save it in a safe place and have that ready to start working on. and you'll want to submit when the time comes and the due date of November 17th comes around. You'll want to submit that optional budget revision tool to your program officer, Angela Hernandez. She will be your main point of contact by that due date. This is a quick peek at that optional budget revision form. You can download that, as I said, from the chat box. We've actually added, if you open it up and look at it right now, we've actually added a few extra tabs. So we've always had the tab that you see on the screen where you can enter in the information. Yes, new and improved. We've also included some tabs with some directions as well as some examples for you, so you can kind of look at that. Some tips in terms of moving around and manipulating that tool as well. So we hope that that helps, again, to make your reporting life just a little bit easier going forward, and that'll be useful to you. Any questions about that? I know you've had some interaction with these revision tools and reporting tools for budgets in the past. And Sarah, did you want to add a few words?
I'm going to throw in my unsolicited 2 cents just because, you know, the fun spreadsheets are my life. So we've spent a lot of time trying to, over the summer, make these even more user friendly. So please note, when you see on the screen the little carrots in the top right corner, that means there's a little note there. So it's a little tip, a little reminder to help you remember what goes in that area, how you can calculate it, where you can find that information. So hopefully that will be helpful, as well as those new tabs that Tracy told you about. But always remember, if it's giving you any difficulties, if you have questions, do not sit there and spin your wheels and get frustrated. Reach out for help. That is what we're here for. So don't spend hours trying to figure something out. Come ask. We're happy to help you. So you can shoot us an email at any point, or even ask to set up a time, and we're happy to hop on Zoom and actually walk piece by piece through it with you. That's the end of my 2 cents.
I love your tools, by the way. I'm very, very happy. I love that you have put these on an Excel spreadsheet and they're not the old forms from back in the day that you had to fill out. I remember filling out those old SF2 472 or 425 or all those different forms, and they were just so awful. And this is so nice. Thank you so much.
Always appreciate that feedback. Here, I'll just put it up on the screen real quickly here to point out this is the down here on the tab, I'm pointing to the budget revision directions. So this is the carrot that Sarah was referring to earlier. You see this little, it looks on my screen to be purple. And if I just, I can click on that. Oops, I should be able to click on that and little directions will pop up. And of course, it's not going to show.
Sometimes you have to hover, depending upon your version of Excel. Sometimes it's hover, sometimes it's click, sometimes they're purple, sometimes they're blue.
You can also right click and say show comments, like click in the cell, right click and say show, and it'll show comments if there's a little red carrot in the corner.
Okay. Well, I apologize that it's not cooperating on my screen for you right now, but I promise it'll work for you on your own computer. And as always, if you have questions or you're stuck somehow, we are here to help. We don't want this to add to your burden. We want this to help ease the reporting wheels. Thank you. Good to know. I appreciate that. Thank you, Allison. Okay, well, you've been hearing a lot from me already today, so I really want to turn now the mic to you and to kick off our grantee sharing and allow some time for you to share with us any updates. I know we've heard some great things are moving forward with the Connect Tribe and their efforts to open a new charter school, but we want to provide a little bit of time now to kind of go around our virtual table and share, any milestones or successes that you've had since we last met. Would anybody care to kick us off? I mentioned the Connect Tribe, but if somebody else wanted to step up, we could
Hi, it's Esther with Connect Tribe.
Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, we're moving right along. We're super busy with facilities right now. We're at capacity in all our programs. We actually had to stop and enrolling students. We're at exactly 100 students, K through 12th grade in-person learning. And I'm still getting phone calls almost daily, you know, asking about enrollment and if we'll open that again. And we hope, fingers crossed, that we're going to move into the new building within a week, we hope. There's been a lot of, you know, bumps and challenges with facilities. But Carl is working very diligently on that. And we're also going to start work-based learning, we hope within next month, since we have students. We have our Connect Charter School students, and we're partnering with our other programs within Connect Tribe that also requires work-based learning. And we're beginning to partner with other businesses and organizations. We had already partnered with them, but we're revisiting them again because of COVID, and just getting in touch with them again. And hey, remember us? We asked about some, you know, job shadowing opportunities, and just reconnecting with partners.
Awesome. And one thing that we heard about, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Esther, so we can always, you know, share more later if that works better. But we had learned a little bit about the role of the tribal liaison position that was created for the school. Is that something that you've been engaged with?
Not too much. Carl has mostly been doing that, and he was the one who wrote the job description. And I was a little involved with the interviews, and we had a lot of good, you know, people that was qualified. But we have a teacher who's been she's Alaska Native, who's been a teacher for more than 20 years, and she also has social work experience, and so that really helps. And her role right now is just it's very, I guess, a comfort for us as a tribe, so we can have more access to programs and students, and it's a better way of, it's a good communication between us, you know, with Connect Tribe and also this with the charter school.
Thank you.
But she's great. It's actually Carl's wife. Her name is Lulu, and she's just awesome. I'm very grateful that the school has her this year.
Nice. It sounds like a really key position to have. So congrats for it.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. The tribe is very grateful to have her. She's already, you know, met with our programs a couple of times to get us scheduled in, which, you know, never happens that we have actually time in the school calendar for our students and our programs. And the teachers in the STEAM Academy are so excited to get into the classroom and have students.
Excellent. I see Allison sending you some love there. Very nice. Okay.
Yes, we are. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Did you have another comment?
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry. My baby was I'm still working from home.
No worries. I appreciate you joining and sharing. Congrats on all the milestones. How about our friends at VTech? Any milestones or new developments you'd like to share with us?
Hello. Sorry, we're reading the OIE team's chat just now. So I have majority of VTech with me today, actually listening in. But we're just getting ready to kick off year 3. We've had, of course, Ken retired over the summer, so I've been busy filling that project director role. So just getting ready to hit the ground running for year 3.
That's a lot, and congratulations on the new position. Going forward, we'll want to make sure that we have all of that information updated in all of our documentation for you, Kara. So maybe good to just double check on some of that.
Yes, Kara, welcome. And I remember seeing you present at the project directors meeting, and I remember you doing such a great job. So we are very happy to have you with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Allison. Any new developments or milestones you want to share with us today?
Sure. Well, so I'm going to start off with our R3E program, the Recruit, Retrain, Retain, Retrain Educators. Well, we had the equity series in the fall and the spring, and we have a contract with our Humboldt County Office of Education to work with us and the Native American administrators. We grew under our professional development program to put together a teacher companion series for the equity series, which has links to all of our videos and all of the curriculum that was developed and shared and bought. And that is under development right now. So that was a huge, huge thing to finally get that contract done and up and running with Humboldt County Office of Ed. And we just had a retraining for teachers for our new air quality curriculum that we developed. We have water protector curriculum and air quality protector curriculum. One's called Kids. We worked with a company called Kids Making Sense, and we went and found funding from the California Air Resources Board to buy the materials for it. And Lisa, under the STEP grant, is providing the train the trainer training. So Lisa attended the training, and now she is a certified trainer for it. So she can go out to all of our school districts and train on the curriculum that we've developed with Kids Making Sense. And so that was really great. We had 13 teachers signed up. We had 6 that showed up to the actual meeting and were able to make it. The other 7 weren't able to make it to the training in August. So Lisa is now following up with them and going to their classrooms and providing what we call embedded training, where she goes and she shows it and demonstrates this is how it's taught, and the teacher observes it and the teacher does it, that kind of modeling kind of approach. And then she's there to assist the teacher with, so she's not teaching the children, she's teaching the teachers. Like she's having a training session and she's modeling it for the teachers. So that was a real big thing that we did this last year, and it's working out really well. And that, because we did that and we're able to find funding for the stuff that the students actually use under another grant, they actually granted us another grant and we're going to be expanding that program to include weather stations. And this all falls under our Modern Youth Internship Academies, under the natural resources section of our Modern Youth Internship Academy. So we were really excited with that. It also ties into the internship program. So Lisa has been working with our job coach because we had 2 counseling sessions a year. We were going to try and get training for the job coaches and the counselors at the schools to understand the opportunities for our Native American students, both in the secondary schools and post-secondary. So one thing that happened in California just this last year, and you may have heard about it, was that the University of California has decided to provide free tuition to all Native American students that are enrolled in federally or state recognized tribes. So that was a huge, big thing that happened. Big thing. So now we need to get all of the counselors up to speed. And we've also invited a person from UC Berkeley who will be coming to do a training with the staff. Now we won't have that training by September 30th. So it won't count towards our GEPR measure of 2 trainings in 1 year for counselors, because we weren't able to get it done by September 30th. We've arranged it and she'll be here after that. So I'll have, instead of having 2 in year 2, I'm going to have 1 in year 2 and 3 in year 3 instead of 2. So that was really cool that we were able to get her up here from UC Berkeley to meet in person with the counselors. But that's a really big thing, retraining the staff. So we've done retraining. The recruiting has been really difficult, like I mentioned earlier, but we did recruit. What's funny is we ended up recruiting somebody not for our program, but for another teacher's program. And now they're going to become a teacher, but not through our program. because our program doesn't pay for the multi-subject credential, and their program does. So we got her into another program. I don't know if we need to count her or not. She's Native American and she's going to teach, but she's not through our program, but we did recruit her. When it comes to the retain educators, boy, we've been really struggling with that, but we put together a group of Native American administrators that we've been working with under our professional development grant. And we've kind of given them I want to call it a assignment, because we want to have them work together in their induction phase as new administrators on great policies for retaining staff. And I thought, hey, why do I have to invent the wheel? Let these administrators who are new administrators cut their teeth on and help us. So we're providing them with induction support through our other grant, and they're going to be providing us with feedback on how we can better retain teachers, because there's been a mass retirement in the last 2 years, and nothing we can do will keep people. I don't know what to do. Not increasing benefits. There's, they're just tired. They're burnt. So we've been struggling there, but we're trying to come up with better ideas. And, I know that I can't think of everything. So we're turning to people that we have been growing as administrators in our other grant to help us. And I'm hoping that's going to yield some great ideas for us to partner with other people to get things done and retain staff, which is not going on. But another great thing that I wanted to share, and I don't know if I shared it earlier, but one of our partners in the Consortium for Tribal Innovation and Entrepreneurship is the Humboldt County Office of Ed Education. And we submitted a grant application to the state of California based upon our work on the equity series and the work that we've been doing with Humboldt County Office of Ed on developing curriculum. And our grant was approved, and we will be a part of the statewide curriculum for developing Native American curriculum for the state of California. So Blue Lake Rancheria, the Yurok Tribe, and Humboldt County Office of Ed, working with the San Diego County Office of Ed and the tribes in Southern California. And there will be a statewide Native American curriculum for the state of California. And that's another 3-year process that we're going through. But the things that we developed under this grant, the equity series on how to train teachers to teach about Native American history in California and tribes, I submitted that in part of my section C. There's several pages that outline the different equity series that we did. There were 5 different ones. We are going to be replicating that. Like I said, we did that contract with Humboldt County Office of Ed to put together that document for teachers. We're going to then give that to all of the different county offices of education, and they will be able to develop that kind of equity series for their local tribes in their counties, because there are, over 100 tribes in the state of California that are federally recognized. And so there's going to be a lot of customization that needs to happen for the individual areas of the state. And through this grant and our work with this grant, we were able to get that grant. And then with our work through the professional development grant that Angela's on, we're building Native American administrators in the Northern California area. And we now have 4 Native American administrators at new schools. We have one at Shasta County Office of Ed, who is the head now for Native American curriculum for Shasta County. And we have a principal at Hoopa High, a principal at Hoopa Elementary, and a principal at Grant Elementary in Eureka through that program. And they are all out and being outspoken and going to our small school districts association, spreading the word about the work we're doing. So we're making headroads into Lake County and Trinity County and the other counties, so that the work that we're doing will proliferate, I guess is the word. It's going to spread, it'll grow, it'll build upon each other. So the work that Lisa and I have been doing under the STEP grant with Department of Education has really, it's blossomed. I'm so happy. The state of California has made such progress. I was tearing my hair out 2 years ago, and it's persistence. And it's building really key relationships with our LEAs. I cannot stress it enough that through this grant and the professional development grant and our beginnings with the NYCP grant, we were able to establish such wonderful community partnerships with our county officer of ed and our local universities that because they have the political power, they were able to like work with the state to have them see that we needed this statewide Native American curriculum. So that's, I mean, I can't take all the credit and put it on the STEP grant. It's really been a, I guess I could call it a puzzle piece, little puzzles of pieces from all of our various grants that have put this all together. But it's been momentous, and I'm just so thrilled to share that with you today. So thank you so much for allowing me to do that.
That's fabulous. Fabulous. That's really gave me goosebumps.
Yes, I hope you're taking in all the claps and snaps and kudos that you're getting here in the Zoom, Allison. The curriculum, and I know VTech has done some work, supporting teachers and how to teach about American Indian peoples and tribes, and it's really exciting to hear what's going on in California as well. And you mentioned teacher retention too. I know that's an area of interest beyond even your region, and even makes me think it's one of those areas, when your APRs talk about contributions to the field, what you're learning about retaining your Native American teachers and administrators could be a real valuable add. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that retention thing, and this is again, the STEP program is working to recruit teachers, and not just for our program, but for the LEAs, for our professional development program, which is to build administrators. And I'll tell you this, we had 8 teachers join our cohort this August. And within 2 weeks, we had 3 of them say, I just can't handle the amount of stress that attending school to get my administrator credential and teaching at the same time with everything that's still going on here. I don't know how it is in other states, but up here in Northern California, we've had breakouts of the Omicron again and again and again. And schools are going back and forth of like, okay, well, this classroom's out and that teacher's out and we don't have subs and people have been getting sick. So we're back, we're in person again, but these teachers they couldn't handle it. So we had 3 teachers drop. So it's not that they don't want to, the desire is there. If everybody is at their last wit, exhausted, at capacity, they've been doing it so long for the last 2.5 years that, I mean, the heart is there. It's just the body and the mind and spirit isn't able to keep up with it anymore.
I think all of the teachers that I know, I was actually teaching kindergarten when we got hit with COVID, and just that alone was enough to make me want to quit, because it was so crazy. And luckily I had a very strong technical background, so it was easy for me, and I had to lift and my other teachers and my team across, because they didn't have the skills and know-how to do combined PDF files and all these things that we were trying to figure out how to maintain some kind of teaching interaction with 5-year-olds on the computer, on the laptops. And it was just an incredible time. And my heart goes out to those who have continued to teach through this, up and down, back and forth, and upside down. It's incredible. And I get it. And it's so sad, but I so get it. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. It's a good reminder.
Thank you, Donna. Any other thoughts and from our grantees here, thoughts that came up as we were listening to each other, questions you want to ask each other today? Making sure I give everyone enough thinking time. I know there's a group of you over in Virginia there, so maybe you're sharing some thoughts, reflections, ideas. All right. Well, I'm being mindful of the time and watching the clock and recognizing that we have just a little over 10 minutes of our 90 minutes together today. So I want to tease for you what we got planned upcoming for the next talking circle. As I said, we'll be talking about some budget things, budget revisions for your third and final year of your STEP grant, excuse me. But we also know that as we've looked back and revisited some of our previous conversations in talking circles, is that your efforts around work-based learning programs has bubbled up. And it did a little bit today, but we had some thoughts, some discussion prompts that we're thinking about for next month in October. But we'd also like and give you an opportunity to sort of weigh in here too. Are there other things that you want to, additional things about work-based learning that you want to talk about with your peers, your fellow STEP grantees? Are there is there information that you've been looking for that might be helpful with your work-based learning programs? I know as we enter in this final year, things like sustainability and continuing these programs is high in your mind as well. Love to take a few minutes now and just hear your initial thoughts about the kinds of things you want to talk about, and maybe some information that would be helpful around your work-based learning programs and efforts.
I can tell you that we've gone to both the Rotary meetings and the Chamber of Commerce meetings that are monthly to find partners for the work-based learning programs, because those are local businesses that are a part of the Chamber of Commerce and a part of Rotary. And so Lisa, Marley, and I have been going to those and pitching our program, which is Design Your Own Internship program for students, where the students can talk to the person and say, I have these many hours, I want to learn these things, can you use me? And try and help engage in that. And we've actually gotten 2 or 3 partners through that, going to those meetings, because that's what they're there for. They want to do, that's why they go to Rotary, is they want to be involved in the community. So I would recommend, if you have a local Rotary and they're pretty robust, to tap them, because that's what their whole purpose is to work with the community and serve the community, especially if they have a youth Rotary.
I see we got a tip in the chat box for you regarding the Rotary as well, that they get grants that they can choose to use for projects. Nice. How about our teams at VTech, or maybe Esther up in Alaska there? I don't know if you have any reflections or thoughts or questions, queries, information that would be helpful around work-based learning as you're gearing up for year 3 and reflecting on all the work that's happening.
Sure, yeah, we've been utilizing a lot of our other programs that require work-based learning too. We have the Passion to Lead program that also is going to be offering life skills, and under the life skills is job readiness, and that's where I plan on going in and doing some life skills classes. So we've been taking advantage of the programs that are already in place.
Excellent. Building that synergy across all the different programs you've got going on, definitely. And I think Blue Lake has also mentioned some different work skills or workplace skills training too that they've incorporated. Interesting.
Yes, we did do that. I'm sorry to jump in like that, but yes, we have a work skills workshop that we do with our students. If you want me to send or share that, I can do that.
Appreciate that. Kara, anybody over there with you have any thoughts, reflections, or questions on this topic? We'll be talking about this a little bit more in depth next month during our talking circle, but any thoughts can also help us think about what kinds of resources you might be helpful, or that we can help and bring to bear and lift up for you in the next session as well. You're still on mute if you were chatting. Oh, there you go.
No, I'm here. The biggest issue I would say VTech has had is that Virginia has a statewide requirement that students will have a work-based learning credential by the time they graduate. So the schools are not really interested. One, we partnered with ACT, and we quickly learned Virginia schools just don't really care for ACT's work-based learning. I'm drawing a name right now, or drawing a blank for the name of their curriculum, but either way, ACT is not liked in Virginia. So we are supporting our schools by letting them know of different work-based learning programs, things like that. Yes, Allison, thank you, WorkKeys. So we spent a lot of time, myself and two of my colleagues are job profilers. We've been trying to help Chesterfield become a work-ready community because that's something they've been wanting to do. And apparently a lot of people just aren't liking ACT, because I think 2 APRs now I've had to report that we're partnered with Chesterfield's Economic Development Center, and we're trying to partner with them to become a work-ready community. But to become a work-ready community, you have to participate in the boot camp. And ACT hasn't had enough participation to hold a boot camp in, I'd say, over a year now. So we're kind of struggling with the work-based learning portion of our grant, but we are supporting students by letting them know of different opportunities that are available. For example, there was a organization that approached us that had a free STEM, I can't remember if it was STEM or STEAM, either way, it was in that field. And they had a free opportunity for young girls of color. So of course that included our Indigenous population, and we dispersed that information to our tribes via our CTE and VTech newsletters. So we're still able to support by sharing what's available in Virginia, but the biggest difficulty we've had is schools not wanting to add another thing, such as implementing WorkKeys, and just outright not liking WorkKeys. So Virginia, we still use SOLs, and students have to take their SOL test at the end of the school year. And the biggest thing we're hearing is that students who are having difficulty taking their SOLs and passing, they're giving those students WorkKeys assessments instead, because that is acceptable to get their credits if they aren't passing their SOLs. So overall, we're supporting by sharing opportunities available. I know part of our grant, we don't give the direct services and things like that. So we're not really setting out to create a program, but we are supporting programs. Yeah, Allison, it's been a big challenge in Virginia. But I think the biggest piece again is that I think it's called the 5 C's of a Virginia graduate. They also call it the profiles of a Virginia graduate, but a huge shift within the last, I'd say 10 years has been a big focus on work-based learning and career and college readiness by the time students come out of college or high school. So it's been a challenge, but we're doing what we can.
What I can tell you, we've worked with the BIA to get some funding for internships in the natural resources field, agriculture, natural resources. They have a program called the Wildlife and Parks Program. They call it the TPA program, and you can contract for that under your PL 9638 contract, and your tribal council can request funding under that. And you can then utilize that funding for internships either at your tribe or provide that as a sub-grant to people in that field. We've done that with the California State Parks. So we got funding from Bureau of Indian Affairs, and then we provided a contract with California State Parks for them to be mentors of our students who are interning at California State Parks. So there's ways you can do it where the students get paid and they can also get work study credit for it. I don't know if you have work study credit in your system or not, but our students have to do a minimum of, I think it was 120 hours in a semester to get units to count towards work study credit. And we worked with California State Parks and our local community college. They got dual enrollment with local community college and the high school, and then they got the mentoring through California State Parks. But that was all paid for under the BIA program, which we wrote all that stuff under this program. So I think there's ways to do it. And Kara, if you wanted to meet with me and Lisa again, like we met last time, I'd be totally willing to help you put together something that we could submit to BIA for you.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'll shoot you an email and check this out and see if we might need any assistance. Thank you.
You're welcome. They've got the Tribal Climate Resilience Program, the Resiliency Program, the Tribal Youth Initiative Program. There's several of them, and you can write internships for work-based learning into those programs.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love that you guys are networking and making connections. It really speaks to the strength of you guys sharing information and willingness to help lift each other up. I really, it warms my technical assistant's heart. So thank you for that. I know we've got just a couple of minutes, so I'm going to quickly share, some updates and dates and upcoming events with you. I'm also going to go ahead and put up our end of session poll in case you are scooting off to the next meeting or your next obligation. We do ask that you please complete that for us before you leave today. So while that goes up, I'll go ahead and run through these reminders here. So one I want to make sure is on your radar that if you have any email list updates for your technical assistance team, anybody that you want to include on our distribution list to include in these meetings, you can send that information to us. If you have any changes, additions, or corrections, please email that to oie@seiservices.com. Please also copy your program officer. At this point in time, that would be Donna Sabas Burns. That will shift to Angela Hernandez in the not too distant future, in the next couple of weeks. So you can scroll up in the chat box and grab those emails again if you need those. But if you're making updates or changes or additions, please be sure to include the name of that person, their role, as well as their email address. Here are some dates for STEP talking circles in this upcoming project year. We will convene again next month, October 20th. And then you see the dates somewhat quarterly there for 2023 in January, March, May, and August. You can go ahead and put those on your calendars now so you can protect that time. It's always good to see you all here. Our next office hours, I know somebody mentioned that earlier today too. Feel free to drop in, drop out on that office hours as needed. Will be September 22nd from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Reminder that comes every month on the fourth Thursday of the month. I also have just a couple of items here that we wanted to lift up for you. A reminder that you do have access to all of the sessions that were recorded at the project directors meeting. If you weren't able to attend a session that looked really interesting, you can go back and watch it Netflix style. You have that for the next year. And also you may want to check out on our YouTube technical assistance page too. We have the 50th anniversary celebration that took place a few weeks ago earlier this year. We announced the winners of the student artist competition. That might be a chapter that you want to take a look at, as well as some student testimonial recognition sessions too. You might want to check that out as well. Okay. Hopefully you've all completed that poll. I see we've got some responses rolling in, so thank you. I know both you might have to jump off, but if you have any questions, we'll hang on for another minute or two in case you have any questions before you go.